President Trump and I have been committed to making sure that we had the best data available. When you hear doctors Fauci and Birx talk about risk, talk about fatalities, trying to think about how to model, what they need is data. They need data from Italy, they need data from China, they need data from Iran. We need every country to step up and provide accurate, transparent information. If we can't have that, if we have disinformation instead, there are more lives that will be at risk, not only today, but in the weeks ahead as we battle this enormous challenge. We've asked every country to step up, tell us what they know so that the world can learn. America will then turn around. We will share the information we get, and we'll keep people safe, not only here in the United States, but all across the world.
One of the huge problems here has been the need or the inclination to make really sweeping policy judgments early on based on very bad data. And I'm not saying that there has really been an answer to this, but the Chinese have been lying about this from the beginning. The Chinese are now putting out information that just no honest person thinks is honest. Our media, on the other hand, seems to think of itself not just as the propaganda arm of the DNC, but increasingly the propaganda arm of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Here is Congressman Matt Gaetz speaking to this issue. Play 8.
We saw the Democratic Party overhype the Russia threat. Now many are cozying up to China. Today's Democrats have become the pro-China party. I would suggest that China doesn't need an apology from Seth Moulton or access to bailouts through the economic relief package, which, by the way, many Chinese-controlled companies are going to be able to get. And they certainly don't need another bite at the supply chain. It was just this weekend that the propaganda arm of the Chinese government was bragging that their genetics experts had gotten fast-track approval from our FDA to send over coronavirus kits. So we need to do a lot more to re-domesticate that. I would suggest China needs a reckoning, not an apology.
Gaetz is right. But there's also the civilizational shift here. And I know this sounds maybe esoteric, or this sounds like a conversation for some other time, some other era. China could emerge from this, depending on what happens with our economy. And look, I know I've been told that the economy doesn't matter. The economy doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happens to it in the next 60 days, the next 90 days. No talking about it. We're fine. The government says it's fine. We're all fighting against the virus. That's it. That's it. Maximum lockdown. If you don't agree with that, you're a horrible person. All right. This is where we are. So, and that doesn't mean no lockdown, right? I mean, there could be other ways to try and approach this, but no. Maximum lockdown or you're a terrible person. Everywhere, by the way. New York, yes, maximum lockdown. Absolutely no question. I can't imagine anything else right now. Montana, should that be in lockdown too? Or where else should what else should they be on a state of, stay at home? Now, I know not every state is currently on lockdown, but increasingly that's where we are heading. And there are some states that are getting more and more cases, and trust me, they're going to be in a lockdown scenario too very, very soon here if they're not already. So but let me just put that aside. I know I keep returning this because I'm a little bit surprised at how quickly neither the Constitution nor the economy is worthy of discussion in so many quarters. We are being told the government that was wrong in its preparation for this, wrong about the severity of this virus, wrong, is now going to put the economy in the deep freeze for 60, maybe 90 days, maybe longer, and just thaw it out like a hamburger that you want to eat tomorrow, right? That's the plan. And if you have any concern about that, you're a bad person that wants old people to die. This is what you'll be told. Okay, well, yeah, that's what. So let's we're all in on just doing what we're told now. We're all in on not questioning authority and just going forward with everything. I'm washing my hands 100 times a day. I'm on lockdown here in New York. I've been in quarantine for 2 weeks. I'm not a crazy person. I just feel like open discussion about what's working, what's not, what's worthwhile, what's not is probably a good thing. But instead, we're just told, do as you're told now. And we are all right now. When I say all, a lot of you are like, Buck, I'm not there, but we're increasingly in, as a nation, we're just in obey mode because we're scared. Understandably, we are scared right now. We are being told to obey or else. And the force that is backing up all of these demands is going to increasingly be deployed and used. But let's not worry about that right now. Let's just everyone stay home for as long as it takes. As long as it takes. Okay. So what does that mean for the long-term prospect of our struggle with China for hegemon status, which we have had since the fall of the Soviet Union now for really my entire life, beyond maybe, being a very, very young child. So we have been the hegemon here for 30 years. It's been 30 years of America as a power that nobody else could even begin to compare with. Do we come out of this at least still ahead of China, or do we come out of this with China perhaps ahead of us, or we're at relative parity? I think that must be considered in all this process. I read an article this morning about the possibility of the end of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency and what that would mean for international transactions, for U.S. wealth. This is the kind of global incident that could lead to that. In fact, the analysis that I read, and it wasn't in I think it was in Bloomberg, actually, was that this is a Franz Ferdinand moment, that this is something that will change everything, and we don't yet recognize the full ramifications of it. Change everything economically, he's talking about. Why will we have the reserve currency after this? We're $22 trillion in debt, soon to be 24. Soon after that, probably to be 26. We're going to be the reserve currency forever with that rate of debt and that rate of spending. Okay, great. That's what I'm told, and that's where we are. Okay. Well, the Chinese are viewing this as an opportunity to rewrite the history of what's happened. That's for sure. They don't want this to be on them. They want this to be on us. And the Chinese government's dishonesty has cost trillions of dollars of wealth from its rivals because they tried to hide this, because they knew it would be a threat to their control. And the Chinese Communist Party is just built on control and force, right? There's no elections. We know this. It's an autocracy. And instead of facing up to what happened here, they decided to try to bury it. And there are some very clear parallels. If you've seen that, I mentioned it yesterday, if you've seen that show Chernobyl, where you have all these bureaucrats, these true apparatchiks, right? These bureaucrats that work for the apparatus of the Soviet Union, and no one wants to be the one delivering to deliver bad news is to be the person that's the bad guy. No one wants to deliver bad news. So the Chinese, because they had these other problems in the past with airborne viruses spreading, we know about this, whether it's H1N1 or SARS, they set up a reporting system, and the reporting system was supposed to be any cases of this go immediately to Beijing, the central government, so that they can clamp down on an outbreak very, very quickly, and that's the end of it, right? Then the outbreak will be finished. They'll stamp it out right away. Guess what ended up happening? People didn't want to share the data. People kept the data out of the system. People that saw the data didn't want to report it to their superiors. Nobody wanted to present bad news. Bad news when there's no accountability and, more importantly, in a lot of ways, no ethics in a government system. People don't feel that they have a mission beyond the service of the system. When that's the case, then people will do exactly what we saw in China, which is there'll be a sort of cover up by the collective. It's not just that one person said cover this up; it's that everybody along the way was like, "Ooh, I don't want to be the one that puts in the system that this happened. Let's let somebody else do it. Let's just push this aside for now. It'll go away. It'll blow over." Now here we are. I am sitting in lockdown right now in New York City, worried about my family members, worried about my friends, worried about people that I know who are treating this virus and were on the front lines. I'm sitting here right now thinking about all of that and worried about my fellow Americans because of decisions made by functionaries in the Chinese Communist Party thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away. Welcome to Globalization 2.0, everybody. I mean, this is the part of it that, oh my gosh, that discussion, by the way. When we're finally able to have political discussions without fear of just being shouted down for taking away the attention from, saving saving our grandparents. But it's not just our grandparents, as we know. It's a lot of people that are younger. And from people my age, my parents fall into the higher age demographic here. A lot of you listening, your parents or you yourselves are in the higher age demographic, but it's dangerous. This thing is dangerous down to people in their 50s and their 40s, some cases in their 30s and 20s, but those I think that those cases are singled out in a way that's unhelpful by the media, because it's really 30s and 40s. There's some bad stuff that happens to people with this, no question, especially if you have other. But once you get into your 50s, your 60s, it can be really, really dangerous. And, at some point in the future, we'll be able, though, to have conversations about other things without the constant moral blackmail of you're taking your eye off the fight against the virus here. No, I just think we have an all-of-the-above approach for how do we defeat a virus while also keeping America as strong as possible and in the best place possible to defend its interests, its people, and create freedom and prosperity for future generations. But the reporting system in the Chinese Communist Party failed. The propaganda where they're lying about it, saying that America created it, that's not something that's just a little incident here or there. There's a real effort underway to do that. The sending of equipment to places that doesn't work, as we know. Chinese have done that. Sent, I think, 1/3 of the ventilators they sent to Spain actually function. I also saw some anecdotal reporting today that one of the problems we're running up against with trying to get more PPE and to buy it from Chinese factories right now is that the market rate is not being, European countries are just paying for whatever the market rate is right now. And American companies are shorter on willingness to do that because they don't want to be seen as engaged or, being a party to any sort of price gouging that's going on. So we don't want to pay those higher rates because then you'd have to sell them at a higher rate. And so they won't do it. We're pretending that market price mechanisms don't function for PPE on a global scale when they still do. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Sorry if it was a little bit oblique. But the globalization conversation is going to be very interesting. The borders conversation, what is the future of this country like if we don't really think of it as a country, as a nation, as a people? And maybe there'll be a reestablishment of that. In fact, Trump's rise came in part because of a desire, I believe, to reestablish sovereignty and borders and this as a nation and not just an entity that allows for governance and an economic union of individuals who happen to be here. There's something more to being an American than that. There'll be a lot of ways that the current epidemic influences our conversation about all of those things.
We're in a phase 1 trial. We went into it as quickly as we possibly could, the fastest ever. But still, the process at rocket speed takes about a year to a year and a half. So if we cycle with this outbreak and it comes back next fall and winter, we might have the early components of a vaccine ready to counter that outbreak, likely next winter.
Let's hope so. It would be an amazing time for a scientific breakthrough right now. Here we have the scientific community around the whole world looking at this. And this microscopic particle, this virus, all it wants to do is just replicate itself. Why do viruses even exist? I know there are viruses all over. Most of them are harmless to us, but the whole world is fighting against this microscopic particle. And are we going to be able to win that battle sooner than later? And how many lives that would save? And you've got to think that with all the researchers, with all the brain power, all the computing capability, everything that we've got all over the world, we can't get a treatment sooner than, I know that vaccine is a different issue, but we can't get a treatment sooner than the fall. We can't get a treatment in the next 30 to 60 days. Something that really is a game changer here. I feel a degree of frustration with that. In fact, I'm just not willing to believe that yet. I think that there will be something. There will be something better than what we have right now to fight against this. Or maybe we'll just find out that one of the things we're using, I know everyone's been talking about hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. Maybe some of the things we're using we'll find out really do make the difference. New York has started using hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin as of this week, I believe. So we will have some real frontline data, which is different than a clinical study, but we'll have frontline data within the next couple of weeks, at least, to show if this is going to save lives. But man, now is the opportunity for a pharmaceutical company to come along and become an individual, a scientist. Usually will be part of a team, I would assume. It's unlikely that we'll have people think of Marie Curie and some of these other great scientists of the past, Louis Pasteur and pasteurization, and we name some of these processes for these scientists. There's unlikely to be one person that is the one who saves us from this. But man, talk about being a global hero. I mean, this is for the first time in my life that there's somebody or there's some group that could step forward and would really be the equivalent of the guys from the movie Armageddon that that dig into the asteroid and blow it up before it can destroy all life on planet Earth. I mean, we're not all going to die from this, obviously, so that's a bit of an even more extreme scenario by a few orders of magnitude. But there's a real possibility here, and I hold out hope every day. I mean, the one thing I wish for more than anything else is that I'll wake up and I'll be able to look at the news, or I'll get some message from someone who's perhaps in the pipeline of information on this one. I've got some good sources in a whole bunch of places, and will just tell me they found something. They've got something now that can really fight this thing, and we're going to churn it out. And now, it would just be such a different world if you went into the hospital and they were saying, we've got something that you've got a really good chance is going to knock this out of you in a couple of days. And you've got a really good chance, even if you have the more severe symptoms, really good chance of going home just fine. I mean, I honestly think, I'm going to tell you this, when that day comes, and I'm hoping that it will be here in the next couple of months. That's just my desire. That'll be the first news story that I can think of in a very long time where I think I will actually break down in tears. That's how much of a relief that would be. Now, I don't know if we'll get there, but I'm holding out hope with everything that I've got. There are a lot of different companies that are trying to come up with something here. I also wonder why we don't have a bounty system, given how much money we're spending right now. I mean, the government should just say anybody that figures out a treatment that has, I don't know how would they even gauge the efficacy, but 70% efficacy in reducing, in curing cases within a week, or 80% efficacy in curing. They should get a check for, I don't know, 10, 20, $50 billion. I mean, really. I mean, we should be willing to throw serious money at this, because the profit motive matters even now. I know we're supposed to believe that everyone's just all hands on deck with everything, but the profit motive always matters to people at some level, certainly to corporations. So, man, I'm hoping that I'm right on this one. I'm hoping before June we get it. All right, we got roll call. Let's go here. First up, remember, facebook.com/Buck Sexton. And you guys, it cheers me up that I get all these messages from you. Please continue to send them. Thank you so much. And yes, indeed. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. Thank you for all of your messages. And I just so you know, even if I don't get to read it on air, every night I'm going through and reading as many of these as I possibly can. So I'm hearing you. I'm reading you. Well, I'm not hearing you, but I'm reading what you think. And it means a lot. Every message is appreciated, except for the mean ones. But hopefully there won't be too many of those. Ted, hey, Buck, hope you and Mark are safe and sound in your lockdown. I was listening to your Friday show. You said manufacturers should be putting out thousands of ventilators by the end of the week. This is not possible. Most retooling takes months, but in this crisis, it will only take a few weeks to be in full production. Just to make a simple tool for parts takes 2 weeks minimum from design to finished product. Once retooling is complete, we can run nonstop for thousands of respirators. Just let you know, you guys are my favorite. Shields high, brother. Ted, thank you. You know more about this than I do. And I think sometimes we speak, especially when we're just reading about coronavirus all day, we speak out of frustration. That we just wish things could be better than they are. But yeah, there are still economic and material and labor realities to all of these things, which is why I still think the economy is really important to keep going. But, can't say that out loud anymore. Leo, But yeah, no, Ted, thank you. And by the way, guys, when I'm wrong, I like to be told I'm wrong. I like to learn. I want to know. A lot of you, every single one of you listening to this show has a whole bunch of things you know more about than I do. And so if I ever stray into an area of your particular work expertise or anything else, and you think there's a way to tell me so that I can then educate everybody else, one of the reasons I love doing this show is I constantly have to learn, and I like learning from all of you. I don't pretend to know everything. Some people think that that's the way to build, an audience, and that's the way to get attention. There's some things I know a lot about. There are other things I'm just a student like everybody else. Like hockey, for example, right, Producer Mark? Producer Mark is the Obi-Wan of the NHL to my Padawan.
I mean, I don't have to be that much of an expert to know more than you about the NHL.
Nice and salty. Good to have you on board, Mark.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no problem. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Leo. Hey, Buck, I recently found your podcast. With all the other talk radio hosts and podcasts, I made time for yours on the weekend. I binge your show while working around the house. Shields high. Well, Leo, hey, man, welcome to the team. Hopefully we'll be able to win your trust and your time so that you'll listen to us during the week. That would be great. And, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for adding us in. You're a welcome member, Team Buck, even if you're binging on the weekends, whenever you listen. We appreciate it. Miriam. Hi there. What are your top book recommendations for a history nerd and law student? Whew. Miriam, I can't really do that much for you on the law side of things, although there are some philosophical treatises that I think may be worth your time. In terms of history books, ooh, man, I love Empires of the Sea by Crowley. Robert Massey's biography of Peter the Great. I'm not even a big Russian history guy, although I'm becoming more of one these days. But the biography of Peter the Great is incredible. William Manchester's biography of Douglas MacArthur. William Manchester's biography of Winston Churchill. The Jenkins biography, Roy Jenkins, a former member of Parliament in the UK. His biography of Winston Churchill's pretty decent. Not as good, in my opinion, as the Manchester Last Lion biography, but still pretty good. Those are very excellent history books. So I'll have to think of some other books on history that I could recommend for you that I think you would. There's a Cortez book that I read recently. I'm actually forgetting the name of it, but the guy, Buddy Levy is the guy who wrote it. Is that the name of the author? Here, let me make sure. And see, now you got me all tied up with trying to make sure I give you the right book, because I don't want to ever give you Conquistador, Hernan Cortez, Montezuma, and The Last Stand of the Aztecs by Buddy Levy. Indeed, I was correct. The Cortez story is just crazy. And the fact that it hasn't, I think it is being made into a miniseries right now. I mean, if they do it right, the Cortez story on Netflix will be one of the most amazing things you've ever seen. They can just do the real story, more or less. They can keep it very historically accurate. What this guy was able to do, oh, by the way, vicious, conniving, brutal, I'm not saying he's a good guy, but I'm just saying what he did. I mean, to show up with 500 guys and take on a whole lot. I mean, imagine showing up with 500 dudes. They were all dudes. There were no ladies, so I can say. Imagine showing up with 500 dudes. And yes, you have an advantage of horses, steel, and gunpowder. Right? Those were the big advantages that Cortez and his men had. But keep in mind the gunpowder. It's not like you're showing up with an AR. Some of you are like, yeah, I'd show up and I'd have my AR, my EOTech, and those Aztecs wouldn't stand a chance. It's like, nope. We're talking about an old flintlock style. You have to light it, and if there's any dampness with the powder, and you fire one shot a minute, and it's on a little stand, and you would not want 100 people with hatchets and spears and everything else coming at you while you had your one shot. Now, the horseback and having steel for swords, steel for armor, a very, very big advantage. But really, the story of Cortez is a story of how he played the local politics and tribal rivalries against each other, and became a special guest of Montezuma, and became a special guest of the empire, of the emperor of the Aztecs, and got close to him, held him captive in his own capital city. My friends, I'm telling you, it's if you're looking for something, some escapist reading, just pick up the Buddy Levy one is very good. But I would say any biography of Cortez, any story of Cortez the Conquistador, you'll just be like, this is insane. This guy's nuts. All righty. What else do we have here? I was producer Mark. Oh, here we go. So there you go, Miriam. So you got me off on a little buck tangent. Annie, loyal podcast listener. You shine with all your personal life comments, your banter with grumpy producer Mark, list of books you're reading or have read, Netflix cable shows. By the way, binge Godless, Jeff Daniels is amazing. Your personal hair dilemma, the girlfriend, the fact that you're a PlayStation guy, and of course, Toulouse, the dog comments are too adorable. Thank you for your really intelligent commentary. Your show is smart and entertaining. Producer Mark is really grumpy. Well, I'm glad somebody thinks that producer Mark can be a little grumpy sometimes.
I mean, who isn't grumpy right now?
That's a fair point.
We're all stuck in our houses.
Yeah, I'm actually grumpy too.
Yeah.
I find myself walking around. I got to make sure the microphone's off. I walk around my apartment swearing more than I usually do. But
everyone, all the listeners, they get nice buck. I get grumpy buck off the air.
That is also somewhat true. So yeah, producer Mark, he carries a heavy load. He carries a heavy load for the show. We appreciate it. Eric, Joe Exotic is cray-cray, and here's the reason why. It takes several generations to domesticate a wild animal. As witnessed in one of the later episodes, a tiger turns on Joe and he has to shoot it. Maybe Cray Cray is being a little easy on him. He is totally insane. Shields High from Texas. Yeah, Eric, I mean, I wouldn't take a tiger into my home because I feel like even if the tiger didn't wish me extreme harm, those animals are so powerful and so large and so much stronger than a human being, and those teeth are so sharp. I mean, the claws are so long. You really don't want to be on the wrong side of an angry tiger. I just think that's I think that's for real. It's for realsies. Let's see here. But also I follow an Instagram account, and if you're not already following me on Instagram, please do. It's just Buck Sexton on Instagram. I post some hot takes on politics, but also hot food that I am cooking. I do some of that. But yeah, please do check it out. Gina, dear Buck, producer Mark, remember you are the best, most compassionate, informative, and one of the most loved hosts in the radio business. You can guess the other loved host. Thanks for reporting the truth. Hope that you send us every day. Love you. Stay well and stay strong. Shields high. Well, Gina, thank you so much. That's a very nice one. Mark, don't we like the super nice ones? The super nice messages brighten my day.
I read all the bad ones too, so the nice ones really make our day.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, the bad ones are always, you're stupid head, and I hate your face.
I wish that's what they said, Buck.
I mean, I know. We got to clean it up. It's a family show, Mark. Brian, I'm waiting for the Clinton Global Initiative to step up and donate to the coronavirus cause. This is Hillary's chance. It's certainly a global cause. Just went to the CGI website, Clinton Global Initiative, and the most recent cause they've posted is the Puerto Rico hurricane relief. What a fraud. I mean, the Clinton Global Initiative, all that was a giant slush fund. The media pretended it wasn't. It was atrocious. It was disgusting, but that's the Clintons' brand, and everyone just was told to go along with it. So, yeah, no surprise. If you're waiting for the Clintons to save you from this, you're going to be waiting a very long time. Al, Buck, great to hear your voice this evening. I wish I could say the same for Joe Biden. The clip you played where he said almost every president's ratings go up during a crisis, going all the way back to Jimmy Carter and the hostage crisis. What? Carter's response was a failure and helped get Reagan elected. I think his comments about stopping the negative attacks or the negative personal attacks were directed at Trump and not directed at the Democrats. That's just my opinion. Press on, bro. Yeah, Al, I think you're certainly right that look, Joe Biden is jealous right now because he thought that if he started doing these press conferences, people would think more highly of him. So there's that. And they don't. And as for the personal attacks, yeah, I can't remember if Biden was speaking about it in a way where one would assume he meant no one should be engaging in personal attacks, or if it was just really a personal attack on Trump, which would not be surprising if that was what he was really doing. So, yeah, Al, you're a very astute listener, and I appreciate you giving me your time. And I also would continue to ask, especially as everyone's in quarantine, people are really listening to a lot of podcasts. So all of you who are podcast listeners, please do on Facebook or anywhere, just post the show, tell your friends about it, direct message them, say, hey, instead of everyone just talking about Tiger King, be like, have you heard of the Buck Sexton Show? You should listen to this. It's on Spotify. It's on the iHeartRadio app. It's on Apple Podcasts. Producer Mark, where else can people listen to podcasts these days?
There's a platform called Stitcher that a lot of people use. Google Play if you have an Android phone.
There we go.
But just thebucksexton.com, which will be having new content soon.
Ooh,
you can always get it there.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. So yeah, those are all the ways, folks. Please do tell people about it. We're actually almost at the end of the month, so we'll be checking in on our podcast downloads for the month. But we're hoping that they go up pretty substantially because they have been in recent months. Okay, Mark with a C, not a K. Hi, Buck. I'm listening to you on 11:50 a.m. in Los Angeles, KEIB. Thanks for giving a shout out to all of us in essential businesses. I work at a very busy Costco location. The past month has seen such an increase in volume that it's unbelievable. Costco has put in place protective measures such as social distancing spacing markers on the front end where checkers like me work to install shields on the check stands themselves. Thanks for taking the time to read this. Shields high and good health to you. Mark, good health to you too. Thank you for doing what you are doing. Thank you for keeping this country going. We cannot win the virus fight unless we have people who continue to show up and do their jobs, the essential folks out there on the front lines, medical personnel, but also economic supply and logistics personnel. So that is folks who work at Costco. That is folks who work at major grocery chains all across the country. I saw that there's this walkout from Whole Foods, for example. I'm concerned about what's going to happen going forward with some of these circumstances because everything changes the moment that people show up. If this happens, if people show up to stores and they really look like there's nothing there, there's very little on sale at a store, even if it's just a localized problem for a while, then real panic will set in. Now you'll see what panic actually looks like. So it's so important that we keep those stores as stocked as possible. John, Buck, Pelosi is a perfect example of why we have term limits in Congress. She represents a district with powerful special interests, which ensure she's always reelected to garner more and more power in the House to ensure favorable legislation on their behalf and push their agendas. Shields high. Yes, John. I think that's true of Pelosi. I think also Pelosi has no intention of changing any of that anytime soon. She is not going to be in favor of term limits. Members of Congress like what they do. They like their prerogatives, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Kyle, hey, Buck, I find it amazing how people want more government control of our lives. If you step back and look at the whole picture of this situation, our problems are a direct result of local governments and some federal agencies not being prepared for many, many years. Now they're all begging the private sector to pick up the slack in producing the things we need. I know you can't fully prepare for a pandemic, but I feel like these governors have no idea on how to fix these issues, so they just shut everything down. They love to blame the president for this, but in all reality, he doesn't have the power over a state like the governor does. They're the ones that decide the medical supplies they need and the hospitals that get built and so on. The incompetence in government is breathtaking. I'm glad we have a president with some common sense. He seems to be doing the best he can with the limited powers he has. And a limited government power is always a good thing. Hey, Kyle, yeah, I mean, this is the biggest opportunity for the government takeover that anybody could ever really conjure up. I mean, even more so in a lot of ways than a war, at least unless you were losing the war pretty dramatically against a human foe. This opens up the ability for the government to try to control everything. And if you have any problem with that degree of control, if you have any issue with that, you are a bad person. That is what this has turned into. You are not allowed to question this. If you question this, people die. If you have any concerns, people die. That's where we are. Now, a lot of people said really stupid things who are in positions of authority for the last couple of months, but they're not being told that people die because now they're on the, the government can do anything it wants, can tell you to do whatever it wants, and that's fine. I don't think that this goes the way that a lot of people... Right now, the template... Well, I'll get more into this tomorrow. I'll keep you on edge there. Buck, a fairly new listener. This is from Tiffany. You have grown to my go-to podcast when traveling and staying up to date. I have 4 immediate family members and over a dozen of my coworkers who listen to you also. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. I know you've brought up the possibility of the Chinese virus being man-made. You've also added if we don't have natural immunity or antibodies, you would believe it's man-made. 2 questions. Have any of the 25-member Chinese Politburo contracted or died of the virus? If not, do you think they had protection from this? If they don't believe in coincidence, will they also limit? Well, look, I can only say this as we close out the show. I'm just working through that theory. I could never say it's true. I'd never say it's fact. But I'm open to learning more about what happened with the origins of this virus. That much is for sure. And I don't believe anybody in the Chinese Communist Party leadership has gotten it. Not that I'm aware of. Team, we'll be back tomorrow, and I look forward to it. Thank you so much for being here with me. We're going to get through this together. Shields high.